we want to go ahead right now, bring in Dr. Randall Engle. He's the professor of religious studies at Oakland University. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Monday to be with us here on the Oakland County Megacast.
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So first we should start off with the students are going to be heading back to college. How has this been for you as a professor to try to teach during this time?
Yeah. Well, I would probably join the ranks of so many others have said every day it's a new scenario. The plan right now for my students is that I'm going to see them once a week, safely distanced and masked, and then everything else I'll be doing online. So I've spent the COVID isolation videotaping little micro lectures and working on lecture outlines and hands out and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, technology has become so important during the pandemic, even for churches. They're having to stream a lot of their services. Do you think that's going to have a lasting impact on how we do reach out to our religious leaders?
I really do. And many churches, not unlike my own, in that regard, had to go to 0 to 100 in about 2 weeks. I remember going shopping with my tech people here at my own church, and the shelves were empty of video cameras to live stream, just because everybody was doing the same thing. But as a nuisance as that was, it's really, really been a blessing. And it has really expanded so many people's ministry reach in ways they never imagined, and wouldn't have happened had it not been for this occasion. So it's kind of the cliche, every cloud has a silver lining thing. I know in my own church, apart from OU, but here at my own church, our ministry has reached out in ways we never imagined. Every Sunday now we have people streaming in through about 3 different time zones, about 4 different states, and even some of my relatives sometimes in the Netherlands.
Dr. Randall Engle with us. He's a professor of religious studies at Oakland University with us on the Oakland County Megacast. So we talk about technology and how it's been incorporated into the churches during the pandemic in an abundance of caution to keep people out of the facilities and away from each other so they're not spreading the virus. But it's also brought up some issues as well with certain rites of passages and ceremonies such as baptisms and confessions and marriages, where some have been even deemed invalid after the fact because they were done over technology. Where is that disconnect? Because these are such formal ceremonies, why does technology invalidate them?
Yeah, and again, you'd have to be very careful in labeling, for example, all Christianity, and I'm not sure if you did that. It would be different for each faith, tradition, or denomination. Right. So for the Roman Catholic Church, for example, it's interesting there because they've always had Mass on television. Particularly, I remember for people, for example, in nursing homes. And so in that scenario, it is okay to participate in Mass by observation. But now with COVID, some Roman Catholic parishes have said it's okay to participate by observation. And other parishes have said, no, you need tactilely to have the elements of host and wine. Other parishes have said, no, we're just going to have a, quote, dry Mass, just the host. So you see different priests, different dioceses approaching this all in different ways. And that's just the Roman Catholic Church. Protestants are all over the map.
One of the things that we've seen throughout the crisis, some of the church services that have been done over Zoom have been basically hijacked and hacked. Have you had any of those situations with any of your services?
No, and that's the first I've heard of it, and I hope you haven't jinxed it.
Well, I hope so. I hope I haven't as well. So real quickly, talk a little bit about the importance of the interactions that you do have with some of your students. Do they need that one-on-one, face-to-face time, or is the newer generation better able to and better equipped to handle things virtually?
I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth. On the one side, this generation more than ever has grown up intuitively using technology, right? You can give a kindergartner an iPad and they can just somehow figure it out in ways that we just did not grow up with, speaking for myself. So yes, now I'm addressing students in the classroom who have grown up with technology and they are masters of it. And I need to many times ask them of how I can most be effective using technology. That's on the one side of my mouth. On the other side of the mouth, technology has become so common and so taken for granted that students love in-person classes because it's off the norm. We can have this dialogue in real time, in real people. They can ask questions, we can debate, I can ask back. There's no of the wondering, how do I take the tone of this text? Because we're talking and we can see facial expressions and so forth. And I have students who do eye rolling when you say, we're going to have yet another Zoom meeting. They're fatigued, they're tired of it. So again, we're all over the map. Yes, we have technology. It's amazing. It's wonderful. Is it the be all end all for all times in education? Absolutely not. And I hope not. I think there will always be a place for in-person dialogue and didactic teaching in a classroom. For ways that cannot be replicated in technological means.
So Dr. Engle, I want to switch pace here for just a little bit. I'd like to get your thoughts on the story that came out about the Dearborn Catholic priest.
Yeah.
He found out his baptism was invalid, was just home going through old VHS movies and discovered that. Talk a little bit about that and what the impact it has.
Well, and again, full disclosure, I'm not a Roman Catholic. I'm a professor of religious studies. So I'm not a priest, but I do know enough about the Roman Catholic Church to say that the Roman Catholic Church, as we all know, has 7 mysteries or 7 sacraments. Those are all tactile ways that the church teaches that God's grace becomes present. So you think of Mass and anointing with oil and baptism with water and so forth. And mysteries then are done by Christ to his people through a priest, the mediator, right? So in those sacramental moments, the Roman Catholic Church is scrupulous about the formulations that must be used because it's not about the person doing it. They are just a conduit. So in Matt Hood's case, what had happened is, as I understand it, he was baptized by a deacon, and which is fine. But the deacon, again, as I read the story, felt arrogant to say, I baptize you, when he was in an assembly of people. So he changed the pronoun I to we baptize you. At the moment, some people might have thought the we was the assembly. Other people might have thought the we was the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But the word he was supposed to use is I, meaning Christ, as a conduit through the deacon. That didn't happen. Therefore, the church has judged that baptism was invalid. And then if you follow the dominoes as they fall, then you have somebody who took his vows inappropriately because he wasn't baptized, took his priestly vows, and so forth. And so everything he did then was not done by a priest that was properly validated by the church. So that's where we are today. And he just discovered this, like you said, 30 years in.
Such a fascinating story, and you wonder about the people that he did marry. Are their marriages legal, and what's going to happen there?
And baptisms. As I understand it, and again, I could be wrong, he has contacted, and the church has many of those people, and so the baptisms have been redone in the marriage. The issue will come then with last rites. I don't know how you would redo that. And so I know the bishops and the cardinals are being involved to see if there isn't some way forward And I certainly hope that not just for fatherhood, but for also all those parishioners.
Dr. Randall Engle with us. He is a professor of religious studies at Oakland University with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Dr. Engle, a lot of people that do study religious studies are heavily religious themselves and are interested in going into religious studies to better study their faith or to go into working within their faith, but others that study maybe as an elective or go into religious or look into religious studies out of pure interest and curiosity maybe aren't as religious. Over the course of the pandemic, have you seen, either with talking with your students or conversations you have with people in the public, that people have become stronger in their faith or have reconnected with their faith if they have lost touch with it over the years?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And that's not just this pandemic. If you would look at history, surprisingly, the date where all faiths peaked in attendance and adherence was after World War II. And that wasn't just because of the war babies. And you would think that after a war, people like World War II, people would be walking away, running away from all faith, saying there cannot be a God in any shape, form. But yet, people ran to their faith. And I see the same phenom happening here with COVID. People have learned that we weren't created to live in isolation. Haven't we all figured that out? People will use different words, but they'll say, something's off. I'm not being fulfilled. Depression. There's something missing. And part of that is that pretty much all faiths will teach, because we were made to be in communion with each other and with the Great One. And without that, something was missing. So people naturally went back to their faiths to find it however they could and to participate in it however they could. In terms of the students studying at Oakland University, I'm pleased to report, I don't think it's me, I think it's the subject, my classes have all filled. When, as we all know, fallen Roman has fallen. I feel very good about that. I'm pleased about that. It's not me. I think it's the subject matter.
And speaking of the subject matter, how do you encourage your students or just people in general to reach out and try to expand their knowledge on not just their faiths, but other faiths as well?
I remind my students that this is simply, on one level, an issue of good manners. We live in a small global world now, and you, student, are going to go to work or a Zoom meeting with people across the world, and it's only good manners to know so that you can respect. If somebody might say, for example, I can't have a meeting that day because it's Ramadan. Well, now you know what Ramadan is. It's just good manners of respecting and knowing your neighbor. So it's just competency, religious literacy, if you will. 50 years ago, you could assume a homogeneous community wherever you would move. Whatever religion, today, it's all intermixed. So on one level, we simply do the work of understanding, what does this faith tradition believe versus this one, versus this one. What are the terms, practices I would need to know about each one?
We have so many times right now, people are afraid to ask questions. How can they do so and come across as curious and sincere and not rude and ignorant to the person that they are speaking to?
Wow, you ask great questions. I wish you were one of my students. One of the first things we do, and we'll do this a week from Wednesday in my classroom, is that's the elephant in the room we talk about right up front. After I tell them the usual, that this is a public university, so we don't teach religion in that you must convert in order to get an A in the class. Not at all. After we do that, we talk about that very fact, that there is no dumb question. And by the way, if you're thinking something of a question, studies have shown some amazingly high statistic that like 80% of the other students at the same time are thinking the very same question but don't dare to ask it. So I just give permission, and it's an open classroom. And then I kind of model myself, asking them dumb questions that they laugh at and say, you didn't know that? And I say, no, I didn't know that either. So giving permission to explore, to ask. There is no such thing in my classroom as a dumb question.
Dr. Randall Engle with us, professor of religious studies at Oakland University. Just another couple minutes with you, Dr. Engle, before we let you go today. Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss or any other information that would be important for our audience to know?
No, except that a reminder for all of us, irregardless of our faith, you can be a change and you can bring that hope to anybody. Maybe even you don't have a faith. Thank the guy who just toweled off your car at the car wash. Thank the cashier who showed up and is sitting there all day, standing all day behind plexiglass in a mask and helped you check out your groceries. Take the time to thank and validate people. Let them know that whatever their role is, they're an important part of your community. That validation is so powerful, and we can all do it.
Real quickly before we let you go, I'm on Oakland University's website, and it mentions the Center for Religious Understanding. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's the department in which I teach. We have faculty members representative of major religions. We're pretty much all generalists. You have to be these days. But my particular focus then is I'm the guy at the table who I do all the Christianity courses and religion in the modern world. But we also have courses in Buddhism, Islam, the Judaic studies are very big. And then in addition to that, I also teach at the Honors College at the OU, where many times I will pitch courses in some religious angle. One of the fun ones, by the way, that I've done was called Sacred Spaces, because I know that this broadcast is going to Oakland County. We have an embarrassing riches of amazing architectural feats built by all the major religions. So I got my students on a bus, and every Thursday afternoon we would talk about a faith tradition and then go visit a local place where the faith was present in stone and brick. And that was a really great experience, and it's a great reminder to all of us in Oakland County, the architectural jewels we have 10 minutes from Oakland University in all directions.
Well, Professor, thank you so much. Dr. Randall Engle, Professor of Religious Studies at Oakland University, Metro Detroit, definitely a melting pot for various religions as well. We thank you, and best of luck in this upcoming semester.
Thank you, and you too.